Alright, now that I have the light on myself, I can see that I am literally wet from just coming in from the rain. But hopefully you guys don't mind, even though it looks like there's a giant leak in my ceiling. It is pouring here. But today thought I would talk about the game I cover like a live service, but is not actually a live service because it has added almost nothing since launch. Cyberpunk 2077. There's a bit of news today in terms of its performance on PlayStation, not in terms of its technical performance, but in terms of how the game has rocketed to the top of the sales charts for PlayStation as of last month, according to PlayStation's own list of releases. And this is obviously coming in the wake of the game being restored on the PlayStation Store. There was not like one big patch that kind of made this happen. It's just the combination of 6 months worth of patches and hotfixes that have slowly improved performance kind of everywhere, but mainly on consoles. And then they've tried to focus on last gen consoles, but we're at a point where the game can get 30 FPS most of the time on older last gen consoles like base PS4 and Xbox One, but it is not good by any sense of the word. It's like acceptable and not like totally trash like it was at launch. I've said before that a lot of the way they've done this is they have stripped out like a ton of pedestrians and traffic, and Evie has a new toy that she's hanging out with now that is an elephant that has kind of like spider rope legs. It's very weird. She likes it. She has an actual octopus with spider rope legs too, but they just put spider rope legs on everything, I guess. In any case, Cyberpunk is at the top of the PS4 charts, above Grand Theft Auto, above FIFA, above NBA 2K. There's no actual numbers attached to this, and this is in the US, Europe, and Canada. I was a little confused. I think I have to update my article because I just figured this out. They also have a list of PS5, but my wife's calling Evie away. Sorry, that's all you get. There's a list of PS5 games that does not include Cyberpunk anywhere on it, and you have games on that like Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order and It Takes Two and Assassin's Creed Valhalla. So I was surprised to see it not on there. But what I think is happening there is that is that Cyberpunk is classified just as a PS4 game, as in even if you're downloading it on PS5. You're still downloading the PS4 version, so that's why it's appearing on the PS4 charts. So that makes sense, because otherwise I feel like it would be charting in the PS5 list, because it doesn't make sense. It wouldn't even be in the top 20 when it's number one for PS4, when it is worse to play it on most PS4 units. Playing it on PS5 is actually like okay at this point, I think, because it's running the PS4 Pro version. There are still the PS5 and Xbox Series X versions to come, allegedly sometime before the end of the year here. But we don't really know for sure when that's going to come, and CDPR does not like having roadmaps with dates on it. One thing I also found interesting about its placement on the chart is that I have not seen anything from Sony that would like make this happen. Like there was no kind of huge announcement of like Cyberpunk's back in the store, like we released it, blah blah blah. There's nothing like that. You go to the store, there's no like ads for Cyberpunk, or like it's not featured in any of the top slots. Even I was on my PS5 today, and you go to like PS4 games and you sort by most popular, and you have to scroll down. Like it's clearly not like a ranked list like the the list I showed. It's just kind of an amalgam of like the most popular games, and yet you have to scroll down like 30 games to get to Cyberpunk. Like it's there eventually, but it is the number one game on PS4, and yet it is like way down the list in terms of like what's most popular in the actual store itself. So I think this is just kind of word of mouth that like there are all these kind of big news stories and big, social media things about how it was back in the store at long last, and the people that have been putting off getting it maybe either think it's fixed or assume it's fixed, so now they want to actually play it. I don't know what the reaction will be when they find out it is not really that much different than it was. I mean, to a certain extent, yes, but it's hardly undergone some like brilliant transformation on console or anything. That said, I have always kind of been of the mind that there are a lot of core aspects of Cyberpunk that I think are really good, and I think there's a lot to enjoy about the game. It's just the state in which it was launched and CDPR's kind of handling of this whole situation has been the bad part. But I think the main quest line, some of the main offshoot storylines with the different characters, combat I think is very fun. The world is very cool outside of its issues with pedestrian AI and traffic AI, but like Night City itself is cool. So I think people will, find a lot to like there. I am curious what kind of sales do in the long term now, like to see it charting now. Like, I can't overstate enough how much sales crashed after the initial launch period. They sold like 13.7 million copies of the game in just like the last 3 weeks of December, which is insane. That is like nothing really comes close to that outside of like Call of Duty or GTA releases, and maybe not even some of those. But then after it got pulled from the PlayStation Store, which was only like I think a week after launch, and then kind of word of mouth spread that like this game is certainly not finished at all and has all these problems, sales like dropped off a cliff. Like CDPR wouldn't even talk about sales in their quarterly reports, only that they were like missing their goals or whatever. And like I think people were estimating like in the whole quarter, maybe it had only moved like 500,000 to 800,000 units, which is painfully low for a game of this scale. But CDPR has doubled down, saying that they want this to be a game that people buy over the long term. It is currently on sale for the discounted price of $50 on PlayStation. I assume it's that on Xbox also, but I haven't looked. So they have knocked $10 off of it, and it's not one of Sony's like $70 games or anything. The PS5 version is coming, but that is also not going to be $75 or $70. It's a free upgrade if you have the existing one already. I assume it'll be priced at $60 because I think it's CDPR setting that price point, not Sony. So I would assume it'll be the same price. And then we'll see what happens over the longer term. We know they have canceled a standalone kind of multiplayer version of this, but they have continually said that they are going to make free DLC, which is supposed to happen this year, which they have not talked about at all. And then they're supposed to do kind of larger expansion type DLC that they are also not talking about at all. Probably for good reason, because they don't want to make the same mistakes twice. But the game is really popular again after 6 months, which is like just when I think the story can't surprise me anymore, we get something like this. Maybe it's just this burst of it. It's coming back to the PlayStation Store, and that was kind of a big story, and it's caused the surge. But I'm still surprised to see it charting at number one in all these regions. That is genuinely surprising to me, especially considering that like. Again, this is like they didn't release an expansion. This is not some transformative thing necessarily. This is literally Sony allowed it back on the store after it was so bad that it was taken off the store. So that is impressive in its own way and something we've never seen before. But like fundamentally, I believe like for all the memes and all the jokes and all the dunking on it, like there is a very interested core group of people in this game. Either people who haven't tried it yet and were waiting until things got fixed, and they have fixed a lot of things, to be fair. And then there's a core player base that like just really likes the game and kind of got past all the bad aspects of it. I see there's a lot of PC players that are like taking like, really artsy photographs, and like they're just kind of, coasting around the world and like really engrossed in it. And like I think it's an engrossing world, especially when you play on PC. If you have like max settings and ray tracing, like it can be a gorgeous game, which is why it's such this weird disparity between like how far away the base PS4 version is from like ultra high-end PC. And like obviously ultra high-end PC has gaps with lots of versions of games, but I think with Cyberpunk it was especially pronounced. Everyone was like, oh, CDPR shouldn't have made it for last gen consoles, and yet I do sort of empathize with that struggle. Like there were 110 million PS4s out there, and I don't know, like 60 million Xboxes or whatever. So like I understand why you wanted to make a last-gen version of the game. They just didn't do it very well or put nearly enough focus on it. So that was bad. So that's where we are now. We will see if this kind of recent sales spike encourages them to announce something about free DLC or the next-gen versions or something. It's got to be pretty soon. We are in the second half of the year here when all this stuff is supposed to happen. So guess we'll see. Yep, that's your Cyberpunk update for now. And you can... follow along with this saga as I continue to cover it as there are new stories. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later. Take care.